Thanks, everyone. Councillors and visitors, please remember to switch your electronic devices to silent. Welcome, everybody, to the second last council meeting of this council. And I'd also like to welcome any viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream. I'll now ask you all if you could please be upstanding, and Deputy Mayor Proud, could you please read out the opening prayer?
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
And Councillor Criado, could you please read out the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. Brings us to item 1 of the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 3rd of October 2023 open at 6:30 p.m. Item 2, attendance and apologies. We have an apology from the Chief Executive Officer, Mr Stuart Jardine, PSM. 3, approved leave of absence. Councillor Tony Kristovich has been granted the leave of absence for the period 28th of August 2023 to the 17th of August 2023. And Councillor Olo granted a future leave of absence for the period of 16th of October to the 29th of October, inclusive. 4, disclosure of interest. Disclosures from the Community and Resource Committee meeting held 19th of September are listed in tonight's agenda and are displayed on the screen behind me at the moment. Councillors, are there any other disclosures for this evening? Councillor Farrelly?
I'll be on a JDAP 18th of October, which will have a discussion, so I'll have to walk out, I think, on that.
Noted. Anyone else for the JDAP? Councillor Migdale? So, Councillor Migdale, you'd like to disclose for the JDAP?
Apologies, yes.
Noted. Item 5, petitions. 5.1, Councillor Farrelly, would you like to table the petition on the Brighton Park precinct?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is a petition with 8 verified signatures, and it's in regard to the Brighton Park precinct and safety. I'll read the lead in, and then I think with the action I'll just mention points of it. We, the undersigned residents, ratepayers and business owners of 194 to 204, the Esplanade Brighton Park precinct, respectfully request that the following actions from council are done. Residents, ratepayers and owners along the Brighton Park precinct of the Esplanade, spanning from the Esplanade and Brighton Road intersection, that's 194 the Esplanade, to the end of the cul-de-sac inclusive, have faced continuous issues over the past 8 months as a direct result of a permanent and significant increase in illegal camping, illegal parking and antisocial behaviour in this area. Some of these issues include illegal parking on verges and driveways, blocking private property access, trespassing, urinating on verges and private property, public indecency, property damage, theft, drugs offences, littering, intimidating and threatening behaviour. Further background information is given, and they therefore seek action 1, that signage be installed where they are.
Councillor, we probably don't need to read all those actions.
No, okay.
What I might do is because this is probably something that doesn't necessarily need to come back in the future, I might get Mr Quirk now just to provide some comment for that.
Thanks.
So the whole petition will get tabled, but Mr Quirk can probably provide some immediate information on this one.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So, yes, myself and the Mayor met on site with the lead petitioner last Thursday, the 28th of September, and upon review of the circumstances, we are currently progressing the installation of 4P parking restrictions and related signage, some no camping signage. We're also looking to restrict parking on the verges, and the city's rangers and community patrol officers continue to focus on illegal campers. We've actually issued 65 notices to backpackers and 3 banning notices to those who have been displaying antisocial and criminal behaviour. So certainly all of the requested actions within the petition the city is aware of, and responses are in progress.
Thank you, Mr Quirk. Can I have a mover and a seconder just to table that petition, please? So move Councillor Farrelly, seconded Councillor Olo, and just a show of hands, councillors. Thank you, that's unanimous. Item 6, response to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and they were published in the minutes of that meeting. So we'll go on to item 7, which is public question time. And I'll ask, is Lynn Noack present tonight? If not, Ms Noack's questions will be answered in the minutes of the meeting. Robert Mitchell. Thank you, Mr Mitchell. Just your name and suburb, please, to start.
Good evening, Mayor. Robert Mitchell of Karrinyup. Good evening, councillors, council officers and fellow people in the gallery. I raise issue with the council tendering system which currently is being used by the council. Hopefully it's not one of those large items, the supply and goods or services to be obtained through the WALGA program, supplier program. Public notices for tendering are obviously put in by an electronic tendering contractor. As attached on the submission I have with you, as attached, second smallest notice is hard to read with no information. I requested from the council administration a copy of specifications or scoping document on 2 tenders. To obtain basic information, I was told I'd have to register. One tender states, the electronic version, that the tender would be around $530,000 for car park wavering, and I found out it was in the Scarborough district. Yeah. When I asked what was going on there, I was told it's confidential and I'd have to register with this electronic tendering company. I wonder why. Basically, all I'm asking is that some type of information regarding tenders is maintained, like a register of tender specifications or scoping of works on council information details. The other is for tree maintenance. Where and why? Just tree maintenance, that's all it says. I thought we had, unless my eyes fail me, a plethora of day labour personnel driving around that carry out that tree work, picking up fallen branches on parks, doing gardening and maintenance. It could be information not only passed on to ratepayers via request to administration, but also to the councillors too. What is confidential about those tenders for work details?
Thank you for that question. Ms Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Mr Mitchell, for providing the question in advance. There's a few points here that I'll work through. Firstly, the city's e-tendering system was selected after a direct-to-market procurement process, so not through the WALGA panel, so that's just your first point. And the city's procurement team loads all the tenders onto the system, and also they arrange an advertisement in the West Australian in line with the Local Government Act 1995. So that's done by our internal team. With regards to a list of tenders, we do have a list of completed and in progress tenders that's available on the city's website. And as you note, people can also go into the e-tendering system if they'd like more information, much more detailed information on the specification and the scope. With regards to the car park wayfinding tender, On occasion, the city will include an indication of budget, which will assist the tenderers to understand the scope and the scale of a particular tender. This is an indication only, and each tender must submit a competitive bid and a value for money proposal to be successful. So we do that sometimes. The tender for tree maintenance covers primarily street tree pruning, with 35 tree pruning zones in the city. We do use a mix of resources, particularly in the parks team. So we do use employees, agency staff and vendors to sort of flex up and down our staffing levels, which allows us to manage the work depending on the season and the volume of work. And then finally, just your question on the confidential documents. The documents on the e-tendering system, such as the specification, wouldn't be confidential, but the tenderer's response back would be, and I think that's what we were talking about when we responded to you.
So can I just follow up on behalf of Mr Mitchell? So obviously if the tendering system, if the tenders then are available on the website to see, is there currently a link to the actual council resolution that would explain what it's about? And would Mr Mitchell be able to access the basic tender information without putting in an FOI?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. In terms of the tender register, it doesn't link into the I guess the council resolution, but that's certainly something we could look at. So at the moment, it just lists the tenders and what they are. But yeah, certainly happy to have a look if we can link that into the resolution.
So I understand what you're asking, and yes, I'm sure we can do better with that, Mr Mitchell.
Thank you, Mayor. My next question is, I note an extraordinary amount of council planted trees in Camelot Street, Corrine. As you turn right off Duffy Road, the first house on the right, then in multiples as you progress up the street. I've seen where new trees are planted, 5 on the verge of one house. Why are so many planted on one normal verge? Do the residents ask for the 5 trees, or is it a special favour for someone?
Thank you. Mr Manning?
Thank you, Mr Mayor and Mr Mitchell. We'll plant trees for anyone, street trees for anyone who requests them. So it wasn't a specific favour to that resident. Those trees were planted as part of the city's themed avenue planting program. It's a program where we identify areas across the city that are short of street trees, and then for economies of scale go in and do as much planting as possible. Traditionally, local governments planted 1 street tree per front boundary and 2 street trees per side boundary. However, to maximise canopy cover across the city, street trees are now planted as space on the verge allows, and with consideration to mature height and width of species and the width of species being planted. This accounts for the multiple street trees being planted on front and side verges at Camelot Street.
Thank you. Mr Mitchell?
I have 2 out the front of my house, and I had an extremely difficult time being able to put 2 in, but that was a few years ago. At any rate, I'll get on to my third question with tongue-in-cheek. Would it be possible to have a cherry picker to elevate up to Lena's head height in the entry courtyard? I have an old umbrella in my garage. I would like to donate it for her well-being. We are going to have a very hot summer, and she may get sunstroke from lack of shade.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, Mr Mitchell. Look, I reckon, Mr Mitchell, I could get you up onto the balcony outside my office and I could hold you leaning out. We might be able to do it. What do you reckon?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr Mitchell. Roland Hadley. Thank you. Your name and suburb?
My name is still Mr. Hadley, Woodlands. On behalf of the Ewan Street Community Group, who ask how much has the fencing cost to house the Golden Chariot in the city's car park round the back here, and the cost of 24-hour security provided by the city. That's part A. Part B, did the city mayor, the deputy mayor and staff who went to China a few months ago not test the actual Golden Chariot when they were in China?
Thank you for those questions. The first part we can respond to in writing, Mr Hadley. The second part is I certainly haven't got the qualifications to do testing for Australian road.
What about the curtain aspect? Did they not advise and help on that aspect?
No, it's a specific skill to certify for Australian road standards. There is a company called Tiger Spider who actually do the road certification. It's significant testing, as you would expect, of an Australian vehicle.
Okay, thank you. How much has the city paid in promoting this tram to nowhere, in videos, advertising, press releases? What amount remains of the $2 million federal budget, and how much has the city paid to date?
Thank you. And I'm sure we've given the breakdown of that federal funding before. I can certainly tell you the promotion side of it in the media hasn't cost the city anything. It's generated by public interest in it, Mr Hadley.
Thank you. And my third question, why does the mayor keep releasing statements that Scarborough Beach is a world-class tourist destination and that the Golden Chariot will be transporting 500 people every 50 minutes, especially when very few use the buses daily currently?
Thank you, Mr Hadley, because it is one and it will.
That's your opinion, your humble opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Ellis. Thank you, Mr Ellis. Your name and suburb.
Good evening, Mr Mayor. Peter Ellis in Corrine. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff, fellow ratepayers. As Mr Murphy strongly disputed the observation of my wife and son that the parking on Sunday the 10th of September was congested as the overflow car parking lot was closed, can you please advise the time that Mr Murphy attended physically the City of Stirling Sunday markets on the 10th of September and viewed the situation?
We'll have to respond in writing to that one, I would think, Mr Ellis, as Mr Murphy is not here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mr Mayor. As the outgoing CEO departs 3 months before his one-year contract, what happens to the 3 months' salary that of around $100,000 for that time would he have collected had he stayed?
Thank you. So the CEO's contract is exactly that. If the CEO stayed for that entire time, he would be paid that. If he is paid out by the city, he would be paid that. The current circumstances, I think I've mentioned before, is that Mr Roddick will take over the role on the 1st of January. There will be a significant handover period and mentoring to follow. So expected the CEO will work out most of his 3-month time.
Okay, all right, thank you. And Mr Roddick's very happy he gets to earn more money. Thank you. Is a trackless tram, and not picking on you, okay, is a trackless tram operating being managed by the City of Stirling, and when does it start?
You'll find out shortly. So we'll be announcing the time. We're just dealing with the final details of that. We expect that the trial in the car park will start mid-November and it will certainly be made public.
I was looking more for running down Scarborough Beach Road, Mr Mayor.
That won't be up to us, Mr Ellis. It'll be a public transport issue once it gets to that stage. That's why we're doing it in the car park.
Okay, all right, thanks very much.
Thank you. I apologise in advance, Rosemeen. I've never actually said your surname every time I call you Rosemeen. So now I'm reading it, thinking, I don't know how this is going to go. Rosemeen Mutta-Maliza. You don't get to reserve, so we'll need you up here. This is your opportunity. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah. We'll be gentle, but we'd love to hear from you. It's only that once we start council meeting and debate, there's no opportunity for public to interact. So this is your opportunity. You just start with your name and your suburb and then a question.
Good evening. So my name is Rosemeen Mutta-Maliza, and you've done well to pronounce my name. I reside in Ellenbrook. So it's more a question and a statement altogether. So this is with regards to Kwibuka Memorial. Is Council aware that there's a tragic event that happened against Tutsi in Rwanda in 1994? Over 1 million innocent lives were lost in just 100 days. Many of the survivors, include those living in Perth, continue to bear lifelong physical and emotional scars. Many are not able to travel back home in April every year. This is why a remembrance and a memorial is a crucial part of our community and our healing process. Thank you.
Thank you. Council are aware of that. It obviously was a significant part of the report that is before Council this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Felicity Lamb, please. And as you come up, I will just rule to extend question time. This is the last one I have on my list, so I'll check after this. But Ms. Lamb, if you'd like to say your name and your suburb and your question, please.
Yes, my name is Felicity Lamb and I'm from Dianella. I have 3 questions. The first is, it's regarding the opt-in DJAP planning submission for a 6-level apartment block at 39 Chester Avenue in Dianella. Number 1, will officers be supporting the DA with its current height?
Thank you. Ms. Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for the question, Ms Lamb. That application is currently under assessment, so the officers haven't formed their opinion as yet.
Okay. Number 2 is, do officers support the suitability of the development overlooking a school?
Thank you. Ms. Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, as I mentioned, that's part of the assessment, but that's absolutely one of the things the officers are considering at the moment.
Considering, okay. Number 3, do officers believe community consultation for this DA has been timely and effective?
Thank you. Ms. Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, so the application is required to undergo advertising as per our policy. I believe advertising concludes on the 16th of October, and it has so far as we're aware, been performed in accordance with our policy. It will be on advertising for around for 28 days. The results of that advertising and the submissions the city receives is a crucial part of our assessment, and we will consider those submissions once in determining the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Have I missed anyone? There's a few more people in the gallery. I have 3 questions. Yes? And
this is regarding the same matter.
Okay, so if you can just start nice and clear with your name and your suburb, because we just don't have it written down. So.
Okay, hi, my name is Sanella Ravasanen. I'm a resident on the corner of Chester Avenue.
Just the suburb's fine.
Well, it's in Dianella, it's relevant because this is on my street. So the questions I have, just one moment, sorry, I was a bit... Okay, so are the officers aware that the current bin collection and collection of positioning for the Finbar development opposite, which is the same development area, is loud, noisy, smelly, and causes congestion in our little tiny cul-de-sac? And it's pretty much an eyesore for the whole neighbourhood. Are you guys aware of that?
Thank you. Sorry, what are we talking about? We're talking about a DA...
39 Chester Avenue development application proposed for 6 stories.
Sorry. Yep. Ms. Shears?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I believe that's an existing development application that was constructed some time ago. Is that the correct one I'm referring to?
That's the 3
Finbar?
stories, which
Yes.
was originally proposed as a 6-story and has been obviously made into a 3-story on the Chester Avenue side.
So I'm not personally aware of those issues that you're having with bin collection, and I'm happy to forward that on to the relevant department if you're happy to email that to us. I can certainly follow that up for you.
No. I'm sorry.
I can speak on behalf of Barbara. We both have actually made several complaints because we live on the corner of Chester Avenue and on Chester Avenue.
So what we can't do is deal with it right now. Happy,
that's okay, as long as you're aware of it.
But certainly aware of it now, and we've got a commitment from the director that will follow up on it and get back to you.
Perfect, that's all we can do. The next question. Are you aware that these developments, such as the one proposed, have secure, gated, lobbied apartment buildings with underground car parks? They do not create any community, actually have been dissecting the community. So in my experience, we've actually lost contact with the community as a result of these apartments. Are you aware that that's one of the impacts of having apartments in such a tiny cul-de-sac?
Yeah, I'm not aware of this specific development because it hasn't come before council yet, Ms. Shears.
Through you, Mr Mayor, that's one of the things that we do look at as part of the assessment. I can't speak for the Finbar particular application, but in terms of the way a development interacts with the street and the neighbours, that's absolutely something that officers consider through their assessment.
So as part of the consultation process, the first time I heard about it was on the 16th of September. I live on the street. I'm within the 200 metre radius. I have not had any consultation, nor have, and I can speak on behalf of my neighbours Barbara and several other residents that live on the street. We've had zero consultation. The first we heard about it was on the 16th. I feel like this has been thrown on us. We're actually afraid that we're going to lose our homes because of this, and I really want this to be like a major issue that can be addressed very seriously, because we're not in support of it at all, and we've had zero consultation.
Thank you for that. Ms. Hughes.
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for that. The consultation, I believe, would have started on the 16th of September, so that's possibly why you weren't aware previously. The city has, I guess, the applicant has a requirement to undertake that consultation in accordance with our policy. We do always encourage applicants to do their own consultation and stakeholder engagement with the community before they even lodge with the city. However, we can't compel them to do that. However, all we can do is ensure that they do follow the proper protocol and the policy in terms of the consultation that they do, and that we strongly encourage any community members that may be concerned about it to ensure that you do put in your submission through that period.
We will be doing that, all of us will be doing. I just want to make sure it's taken very seriously, that's all. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you for yours. All right, thank you, everyone. I will now move on to item 8, which is applications for leave of absence. Councillor Andrea Corrado has requested a leave of absence for 16th of October to 28th of October inclusive. Are there any other requests for leave of absence? If not, if I can have a move and a seconder to accept those. Councillor Perkov has moved, Councillor Migdal has seconded, and a show of hands, councillors, to approve the leave of absence. That is unanimous, thank you. Councillors, can I have a move and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held 12th of September 2023? Move Councillor Olo, seconded Councillor Lagan, and a show of hands to accept those minutes, councillors. That is unanimous, thank you. Announcements by the presiding member. I have nil, but Deputy Mayor Proud, I believe you have a quick presentation.
Thank you. The Metropolitan Karrinyup Symphony Orchestra, established 1977, extends their heartfelt appreciation to the City of Stirling for their unwavering support, the city's dedication to the arts and commitment to the orchestra's exceptional Young Artist program have been instrumental in allowing us to expand our outreach to the community, bringing the joy of music to a wider audience. We look forward to continuing to enrich the cultural landscape of our city together.
Thank you, Councillor. And thank you to the Metropolitan Karrinyup Symphony Orchestra. We'll move on to item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. 12 now will go to reports from committee. Councillors, none of these are required to be pulled out. Would anyone like any of these items to be pulled out? Councillor Dudek?
Can I pull out 12.1 CS1?
You may. Any others to be pulled out, councillors? No, in that case, I will go straight to that item. Councillor Hatton, as chair of the committee, would you like to move the officer's recommendation?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'll move the committee recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for the committee recommendation? Councillor Migdal. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Dudek?
Or just an alternative recommendation, if we can put in to hold this item over until after the caretaker period and the new council.
Happy to second.
So we have a mover. We have a mover and a seconder as a procedural to hold this over until after the caretaker period. So that takes us through a couple of weeks. That is not for debate, so that is a procedural motion. So I'll put that to the vote, councillors. We've got a vote coming up. There it is. How many are here? So that is a tied vote. So given it is a tied vote and it's only asking to hold it over, I will support the holding over of this item till after the caretaker period. All right, so let's...
Just to be clear,
Councillor Ferranti voted for the deferral and I voted against.
Yeah, so it doesn't
Thank
change the result. No. But if we can change those names as it's recorded. That's all right. So that motion is carried and that will be held over. Thank you, councillors. Can I ask Mr Brereton if you can maybe have a chat to the Rwandans and explain what's gone on, just so they know what's going on. Thank you. So that's not lost or won, it's just held over for another meeting. Councillors, no other items to be pulled out. I will go to Councillor Hatton as the chair for the balance of reports.
Yeah, I'd like to move the balance of the reports, Mr Mayor.
And is that seconded anywhere? Sounds Councillor Lagan. Just if we can go to the votes on the balance of reports, those two other items. We've got a couple to go. Councillor Sandri and Thornton, if you can vote, please. Thank you. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. So members of the gallery and those viewing at homes, please note the remainder of the Community and Resource Committee recommendations have been adopted by exception resolution. We'll now move on to Direct to Council report, which is 13.1. It's a development application for Lot 10, house number 88, Robert Street, Osborne Park. Yes, yep.
I'll declare an interest in it, however, because both of the JDAP members will actually be, there's no need for me to leave the room. Just just acknowledgement.
Mr Mayor, just to clarify, I've resigned from my position, so I don't need to.
No, noted. Just make sure you do the paperwork, Councillor Ree, if you haven't already. Good. Notice that noting that Councillor Migdal and Councillor Farrelly have left the chamber. I will go now to 13.1, development application, lot 10, house number 88, Robert Street, Osborne Park, amendment of development approval 12 warehouses. Is there a mover of the motion, please? Councillor Thornton.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, please, on page 56. And if I may just talk a little bit to that as well.
Thank you. So, and is there a seconder for this? Councillor Ole? Yes, is there? There's questions. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Ree? Councillor Thornton?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank the officers for their responsible authority report. This is the second time that it's come to council. We have called it in, both Councillor Orlo and I, because we want the greatest and highest outcomes for the planning in our area. Just for a bit of background and context to this block interfaces directly with a residential area. It is also along Robert Street. Robert Street is a street that leads to the principal shared path and also a separate pedestrian path. And it also is the closest access point to Glendalough train station. So we want to ensure that this site has great livability for the area. Now, also context for the area is that it's one of the lowest canopy covers in the whole of Stirling, being at only 4%. Also, it's the lowest public open space percentage as well. Now, there was 5 huge canopy trees on this, well, 3 on this site and 2 next door. They were 60-year-old ficus trees. All 4 ficus trees were removed. And as a part of this development, we asked for the developer to retain one of these trees for community benefit. They agreed. They were also given some concessions due to this. So they were allowed to treat trees on that interface Edward Street. I just want to point out too that every single tree in this area is important. So they were allowed to remove their street trees to retain this huge ficus tree. They were also allowed to reduce their landscaping requirements for this development because they retained this tree. Now, I would like to express my disappointment because what has occurred recently is that the entire canopy of this 60-year-old ficus tree has been removed. Now, apparently it is within their rights, and I understand that, but what is a tree? Why are we building our urban forest if we're not considering, a canopy as a part of that tree as well? Now, it's also what has come triggered from this is a positive in that the officers are now going to be looking at what the definition of a tree is, and we're also going to be considering strengthening the conditions for retention of trees by including their canopy before, during and after development. So I would like to express also my thanks that we're moving ahead with that. And yeah, I'm glad that we're calling this in, and also a positive is coming out of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Olo, have you got anything to add?
That's further, thank you.
Councillor Ree, you're opposed?
I concur with the comments made by Councillor Thornton, and it is actually a travesty that we keep having to call in these applications when we've seen it devastating to the neighbourhood and to our environmental policies, which we're supposed to be adhering to.
Councillor, that's not why this was called in. It was called in because they asked for some amendments, though.
I'm adding to it if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Thank you. On page 84, while there is their amendment to the plan, I have raised it several times before about the trees, which Councillor Thornton alluded to. While it states in there about the trees being brought in to make up and try to get the canopy, which was one of the reasons why they had amendments, which is why it called it in.
Sorry, Councillor, it wasn't the reason. No, let's be clear. The trees weren't the reason for the amendments. They actually, as part of the amendments, officers requested, and they are putting more trees in. I just want to be clear. The development has already been approved. This is for minor amendments, and it's been called in to discuss it.
So with the minor amendments, the definition of a tree, mature tree, a tree to live, as was alluded, you have a tree that now has no canopy. When I look at the plan, the amended plan, which I think is a good start, what I'm asking is with the trees, are they going to be trees to last a week, a day? Are we going to actually, because I couldn't find in there, which we've done before on JDAPs, where we've actually said how long the tree must live for. So that's my question, please.
Ms Shears.
Through you, Mr Mayor, the trees are conditioned as part of the approval, and so they need to be retained on site for the life of the development. It's a condition that runs with the land. So for long as this approval is in place and they're acting on that approval, those trees need to be in place. With regards to the one tree that they are retaining on site, an additional condition is proposed, which talks about in the event of that tree dying, it is to be replaced with an advanced tree.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Chair. That's virtually what I was getting at, which we've discussed before. What I can't see it as a formal condition in here, is it caught up just in the plan, or are we actually amending the RAA to actually be succinct in there? That, because we have raised it before, there's issues built. There's an example in Innaloo, classic one, where the trees have died, and we've actually said, well, who's going to replace them? And then the building sold and whatever strata, all those issues. What I'm doing is making sure that this is a bit tighter. So is it going to be tighter, and where is it written to make sure just not on the plan, please?
Ms Shears.
Through you, Mr Mayor, on page 65 of the council agenda, which is an excerpt from our RAR, or actually our RAR, there's a section in there headed additional condition. So that's the condition that talks about that tree that's being retained. It talks about in there, prior to any pruning of the tree, the applicant shall consult with the city, etc. Should the tree die or be removed, it shall be replaced by an advanced tree. So that will form a new condition as part of this approval.
Thank you. Yeah, I did read that. However, it shall be replaced by an advanced tree now, because that's an issue that, like, 3 years we've been waiting for one other tree and it hasn't got any further. And argy-bargy, we're going backwards and forwards. Can we actually say it shall be replaced by an advanced tree as soon as practical, or something?
It's only if it
to
dies.
tidy this up?
It hasn't died, so why would they?
should the tree die, if you read the sentence, Mr Mayor, should the tree die or be removed, it shall be replaced by an advanced tree within a practical time frame. Is that possible to counteract what's
I
going on
wouldn't think
at
it's
the moment?
needed. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I don't believe that's necessary because that is a condition that will run with this land and they are required to be complying with their conditions of approval. So if the tree was to die, they have an obligation to replace it.
So just to be clear, as I've said, that there are issues that are outstanding, and my apologies, Mrs Shears, before your life here. But if the tree dies, who is going to say they breached it? Bearing in mind what's going on with the traffic, that we have planning conditions.
The city will.
So the city will.
Yes.
City who and the city will?
Does it matter?
Yes, it does matter because when it comes to parking as part of a planning approval...
The city compliance team will, but they're not going to check on it every week. I would think someone would have to note it or whatever, but the city compliance will follow up on that and it will have to be replaced as per the conditions.
Thank you. I will follow those things up. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Councillor Ree. Councillor Sandri?
Thank you. It's good that the ward councillors support the motion. I'm just a little bit perplexed as to why it had to be called in, considering that the motion is supported and this probably could have been dealt with in a timely manner, considering that the amendments that are being sought are effectively minor. But my questions relate to the conditions, and I don't propose to move an alternative, but maybe if the officers would like to consider these before sending through the RAR tomorrow. The first one is condition 7. It has the word effective, so provide effective weather protection. I don't know whether we need the word effective because how are you going to measure what an effective weather protection is, so maybe it should just be weather protection. And 7 and 8, which are the engineering conditions, they fluctuate in the wording of the canopy itself. One says canopy and one says weather protection canopy, so whether it should just be replaced with awning, etc., and potentially in the future that could just be one condition. Condition 18, this is a question. It says in there that the associated costs are to be paid by the owner prior to commencement of development and are a 90% contribution of the total. So are they only required to pay 90% of the total amount and the city covers the 10%? How does that work? And I don't necessarily, if you don't have the answer on hand, it's not going to kill the determination, but it's just more curiosity, sorry.
Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I understand that 90% of the Halliwell value is the payment, is what was required. From memory, there is a figure in the original conditions that outlines that value.
Okay, so maybe it just needs to be clarified and that condition relates back to Halliwell, and then that will be fine. And then last one, the additional condition regarding, because it was mentioned by Councillor Thornton that the tree had already been pruned. Is the additional condition relating to any additional pruning in the future? Is that what that's intended for?
Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. If there's no further debate, I'll go to you, Councillor Thornton, if you'd like to close debate.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. While this may be seen as a negative because we've lost this beautiful canopy tree, there is some light, you know, at the end of the tunnel with us now exploring, you know, the condition of retaining a canopy as well as the tree, or in conjunction with the tree, and it being in one. I also want to point out that this tree is highly vulnerable as it is because there's heavy equipment being stored around its base. So while it still may be alive right now over summer, it might not survive through the summer. Another point that I want to make too is that we need to consider mature trees are far worth more than, you know, planting 5 saplings, which currently around, if you have a look in the area, we have a lot of, you know, new trees that aren't thriving, that are dying, and that's why we have to look at retention of mature trees, because these replacement trees are just not the equivalent. They don't have the same weight. So, yeah, that's how I'd like to end. Thanks.
Thank you. And with that, that does close debate. And so this item has been moved, Councillor Thornton, and seconded Councillor Ola. I'll put that to the vote. Is that us? 12? That's enough? How many left? Yep. That's unanimous. I'll do my numbers. It's working out who left. That is carried unanimous. Thanks, councillors. Can we have those councillors who've left come back in? Thank you. We go to item 14 and 15, which are notice of motion. As we're in election caretaker period, notice of motion are not able to be considered until after the election. So there is nil. So it takes us to item 16, questions by members of which due notice has been given. I have nil. No new business of an urgent nature, which brings us to 18, matters behind closed doors. There's no matters behind closed doors either. Which brings us to item 19, which is closure of the meeting, and I declare the meeting closed at 7:15 p.m. No, you can't do it. So the meeting is closed. I'm happy for you to come and have a chat. We'll come and have a chat with you in a sec. But the meeting is closed, and your item, I'll tell you why we've got to do it outside anyway, because your item isn't actually on